Aix-en-Provence is one of the most popular cities in France. A town with that special ambiance of the outdoor restaurants, the cafés, the pedestrian lanes, the historic buildings, street markets, and all kinds of wonderful places you would love to explore. During the next 5 minutes, we'll show you many of the most attractive sights and illustrate a good route for walking through the pedestrian zone. Colorful street markets are one of the fine attractions here, and they happen every day. But the main markets are on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You'll want to spend a lot of time walking through those pedestrian lanes, looking at the little plazas, the historic sites like City Hall, fountains surrounded by cafe tables, and much more. Aix is located in the south of France in the region of Provence, an area with many other beautiful cities. Aix is famous for its fountains, with several big ones along this main street of the Cours Mirabeau, and the sidewalk restaurant. It's one of the most glorious boulevards in the country. On market days, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays, the Cours becomes a pedestrian promenade, with all of the stalls set up and all the sidewalk restaurants along it. Most famously, Les Deux Garçons. For now, it's time to dive into the pedestrian zone, show you quickly on the map an outline of where we're going, straight up through the main square of City Hall to the Cathedral, then back around and down in a big loop circuit that brings us along some of the main pedestrian lanes. Turning away from the sidewalk cafes of the Cours for now, we take a stroll into the old town along Rue Clemenceau, a typical street mostly for pedestrians and lined with shops. And there's another market one more block further on Rue Vauvernage called Place Richelme. It's a beautiful little plaza with trees and sunshine streaming in. Then you will soon arrive at the prettiest of all the squares in town, Place de l'Hôtel de Ville, City Hall Square. The clock tower was built in 1510 and became the symbol of local power in the city. The main pedestrian lane continues north, changing names now to Rue Gaston de Saint-Honore, and leads to Aix's main church, the Cathedral Saint-Sauveur. The tower of the cathedral is 210 feet high, and its construction began in the year 1323. In English, we call this cathedral Saint Savior, built according to legend on the site of a pagan temple. It was constantly revised and unites three naves of these different styles, the Romanesque, Gothic, and Baroque, that flank a legacy with that ancient baptistry and the cloister. The Archbishop's Palace is located just next to the cathedral, and in front is the university, with a history museum next door. Another attractive square 2 blocks west is the Place des Cadors, whose pastel facades surround the large central plaza, creating a distinctly Provençal atmosphere. So it's a prime spot to have a meal. Just a block away around the corner, you'll find another lively street, Rue des Cordeliers, and it is a wonderfully local kind of experience. Mostly for pedestrians, with a few cars coming through, and packed with shops and cafes and all kinds of nice attractions. Take a left and walk south a few blocks and you'll soon arrive at Place de Saint-Honore, slightly off the beaten track, with some lovely outdoor restaurants. The name of the restaurant?
Boudoir.
The who?
Boudoir.
Boudoir.
Oui.
Here you can admire another one of Aix's beautiful fountains, this one built in 1761. The street heading south from the Place is also quite attractive and leads into a neighborhood with even more little lanes, and it's a great place to wander and maybe get a little bit lost. Rue Espariat is one of the main streets of the old town, with many more attractive side lanes along the way. Place d'Albertas is named after one of the city's leading 18th century families, on the Parisian model of royal palaces. Around the corner is yet another charming spot, the Place Saint-Honore, the usual outdoor cafe tables, and some old streets leading off from it. That brings us full circle in our walking tour of the old town of Aix. summarized for you in 5 minutes. We do have longer videos about Aix and the many other beautiful cities of Provence. Be sure to look for them in our collection. We frequently upload new movies, so please subscribe to our channel and click that little alarm bell so you'll be notified. And if you enjoyed the movie, how about a thumbs up? And we always welcome comments down below. Or if you have questions about the destination, make note and we'll answer them. Thanks for watching.